I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Are you ready to win at the game of life? Well, throw out that rulebook and get down to the business of being the best and most authentic version of you. Welcome to the Human Design Podcast. We're changing the rules around success, abundance, purpose, love, and life, where we're creating a planet where everyone can thrive in a world that loves and supports each other. I'm your host, Emma Dunwoody, a qualified master coach, human design expert, podcaster, and entrepreneur that is living the life of my dreams, breaking all the rules while doing it, making a huge impact, and living my design and manifesting miracles on the daily. Join me as I break down and simplify everything you need to live in alignment with your human design, teach you how to recondition your unconscious mind for greatness, and to take back your power so you can manifest your heaven on earth and serve the rest of the planet at the same time. It's time to give up the fear and step into your highest potential, to reach for the stars, to know and live your greatness. It's what you deserve, and it's what the planet really needs from you. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. If you use human design in your business in any way, stop what you're doing because you're going to want to hear this. I want to tell you about something we use in this business that has been responsible for bringing in nearly 25,000 new leads and over 6 figures in revenue in a completely automated and passive way. It's not too good to be true, so stay tuned. That incredible thing is the BodyGraph chart software. This is the total tool that allows us to put a human design chart generated on our website so we don't have to send people to another website for their chart. The best part is we can offer our customers the information we want them to have. If you know me, you know I have a different take on human design, and I want to make sure that the language is empowering, useful, and actionable. With BodyGraph chart, we can customize everything from the reading reports, chart links, and follow-up emails to make sure that they contain the information written and curated by me, so I know each person is in good hands. As for the tech, that's totally Taylor's thing, but from what she tells me, it's super easy to use and set up, and their customer service is incredibly helpful. It's really affordable as well, especially because you get a 50% off for 1 year as a listener of this podcast. Just visit the link in the show notes and use the code HUMANDESIGNPODCAST, all lowercase. It's by far one of the biggest investments in our business and gives us powerful automation technology that allows us to focus on the bigger picture. I cannot recommend it enough. Go check out the show notes for all the details. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Well, today I am so pumped to invite back one of my dear friends, Jess Bubbico. Welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Like, we were just messaging back and forth, like, what do you want to talk about, my manifestor friend? You've got a book. You've been dating with human design. To want to talk about business and being a manifestor. And I'm like, yeah, let's just do all that. That all sounds epic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, I was thinking about, because we had reached out about the podcast like back months ago.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was talking about my children's book. And then I was like, we're going to have so many different things to talk about come September. So I guess we'll just see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I want to let everyone know who is listening as part of our tradition here, just to let you know that if you don't know Jess, she is an emotional manifestor, 4/6, cross of the vessel of love, and one freaking epic human. She's also one of the teachers in HDX. She's done a lot of live programs with us in HDX. And, I don't really want to be a spoiler alert, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see her again in HDX in the future. So, where should we start? Should we start with your children's book? Like when I actually first heard you talking about this, I'm like, wow, like, where did this come from? Because I know it's been something that's been there for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, let's start with the children's book. I think the thing that, like, as you were just talking about that was coming to me is this idea of like, I think for many of us, when we're doing our human design experiment and like really starting to lean in, there's this essence of like allowing yourself to move with the WTF moments of like, I didn't expect that to happen. Or kind of, I guess for me, especially the last 2-3 years has been like fully letting go of control and allowing my own strategy and authority to show me the way. And with that being said, knowing that my strategy and authority following it isn't always like, my life is going to be perfect now and
Yeah.
everything's going to be amazing. Oftentimes, my strategy and authority leads me to like, oh my gosh, I have to grow through this thing and it's uncomfortable and I don't like how it feels. But, obviously I'm being led in this direction, which I know you are constantly growing in epic
Yeah.
proportion by following your strategy and authority. So,
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point because so often there is this misconception that, oh, well, when we're aligned with our strategy and authority, it's all going to be like unicorns and rainbows. And no, it's not. It's the
no.
path of least resistance to evolution, to potential, to all of these really, really great things. But yeah, that's cool. So
Yeah.
how did that and one of the things I just want to respond because I'm talking so much about business now and you're the manifestor, so take this where you want to take it. But I love hearing straight off the bat. I talk a lot to my manifestor clients that you need freedom in your business. You need the freedom because I know as a manifesting generator, like I just don't work in a highly structured environment. I need freedom to get out there to try things, and then I can build the structure from once I've had the freedom and my line freeze had the experience or whatever it might be. So I love hearing straight off the bat you just manifesting it up in business, like letting yourself go where you need to go.
Totally. I mean, I guess this is the direction we can go in and talk about like business and all these things, because I think the book is really a facet of that. Because for me, basically in 2020, I was going through just like a really hard time right before the pandemic hit. I had a couple of things happen that like were those ground shaking moments where you just don't expect the rug to get pulled out from underneath you, and then it does. And I was a little bit, I don't know if I want to say lost, but I felt very directionless. And I ended up back with my parents for a couple of months. And I had expected to start traveling, and it just, things did not go. 2020, I think, was the year for many people. Things didn't go as planned. And
Yeah, for
so,
any people, I think.
exactly. Yeah. And so I ended up at their house, and I like went to lunch because I was in Florida and everything hadn't shut down yet here. And I went to lunch by myself, and I was just in my feels, and I just pulled out my phone and I was like, I'm just going to write some of my feelings down. And a book came out. Like just this
Wow.
story came out. And I got home and I was like, Dad, I wrote this story. You want to hear it? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, that's pretty good. You should turn that into a book. And so, what I've learned a lot about being a manifestor in business from Holly Marie this year. I've learned a ton from her content. And it's funny because at first I was like, no, I don't resonate with anything she's talking about. And then I sort of like let myself surrender into what she was talking about. And I was like, oh, okay, a lot of this makes sense. It was challenging for me because a lot of the times as a manifestor, urges come through, but they're like not complete, especially as I'm like birthing something. And then there tends to be like a rest cycle in between. So it's like the book, it's almost like being in labor for like a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So it's like the book came out and like it came in a huge download. And then I was like, okay, I'm tired. I need to rest. And then it was like, okay, then the next urge came to like just find a publisher. And then I was like, okay, or find out about publishing and how to publish. And then I needed to rest. And so I wrote the book in 2020, but it took me until 2023 to actually publish it and get it out there. And I think in true manifestor fashion, and maybe, for some people this wouldn't make sense, but I actually self-published. And the reason why was because I wanted to have complete creative freedom over where it went and what happened with it, because it was an extremely personal story to me. Like it wasn't a story that I was writing because I was like, okay, I'm on a mission. Like I need to get this book out and people need to read it. It was like, this is a personal experience that I had as a kid that I want to be able to have creative freedom with. So again, as a manifestor, I've had to learn like my business comes in urges, and it doesn't always look linear, like I think for a lot of people, but I've had to become okay with resting in between versus trying to push and force it out.
Yeah. It's so true. And I talk so much about this, especially in HDX, but I often think I worked with a guy in my advertising career. In fact, there's a couple of them that come to mind. And there was like this one guy that he worked on all the pitches, right? So he would just pump out, he would go hard 2-3 weeks. The guy, it felt like he never slept. He was always working on the pitch. Then he pitched the pitch and then he just disappeared. Like he would
Uh-huh.
just disappear for like 6 weeks. Um, and this other guy who would work the our winter in Australia, and then he would bugger off to Europe for their winter so that he could be a ski instructor, so that he could actually just have fun and rest and that sort of stuff. So I feel like I definitely have seen this model work in a corporate environment in different ways. And what's really cool is the thing about both of these people was because they were so good at what they did, everyone was like, yeah, you go for it. You do whatever you want. And I feel like this is becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think at the end of the day, right, you have to work with your energy and how you work best. So if people are going to organize around your energy, or you're going to end up finding a career or a job or a business that you can do that within.
Yeah.
I know for me, I've actually had to work through, I feel like the last 2 years from like 2022 until now has been like a very big 2 years of acceptance and just like
Yeah.
self-love and learning to move through a lot of stuff. I know we're going to talk about like dating. That's been like a very
Oh, I'm
big part of my
so looking
journey
forward to
too.
this part.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, I actually started writing a Substack about this the other day. I think as a manifester, I've had to get over mostly recently the fact that it feels messy sometimes. Like,
Mm,
well, I'm doing this and then I'm doing that and then I'm doing the other thing. And, I look at just as an example, like I've had my aunt and my uncle are on my email list from like years ago, probably 10 years ago when I barely had an email list and my family was like, yeah, we'll get on. If you want us on there, we'll get on it. And, my uncle sometimes, they're both projectors and they're very wise, but they will sometimes be like, oh, so like, what are you doing now? And like, oh, what are
yeah.
you doing now? And I had to sort of work through that shame because when I don't follow my urges and what wants to be created through me, it feels like mud. Everything stops
Yeah.
working. And like I said, like the children's book, it's like I've had to learn to get my own ego out of the way of saying, like, I don't know, maybe that book changed someone's life because they read it. And it was, maybe these urges aren't always about me as
Yeah.
much as they are about what needs to come through and what needs to be birthed. So I've had to learn to sort of like let go of what it looks like, what exactly the numbers look like, who signs up, who doesn't sign up, if it matches the last four things that I did or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it always, if I zoom out far enough, it's always brought me something important in my business or in my life. Like when I went to
Yeah.
Indonesia in 2019, it didn't make any sense to go there, but I met like two key people, like one of whom has become an extremely good friend. And there's been so many connections that have come out of it and things like that. So I think that's probably, it's like, I think I've had to really learn that surrender and letting go, allowing and recognizing that as a manifestor. And really, I think any type,
I was going to
um,
say,
you get, you have to, you kind of have to let go of the outcome to some degree.
yeah. Yeah, I know in my experience, and I really believe it's all of us. I think
Yeah.
we get to the point where we actually do get the ego out of the way. I mean, I know for me, my book is something obviously I'm talking a lot about at the moment. I just declared it on my podcast, just under 2 years ago that it was going to happen. And I hadn't thought about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, I need to do this thing. I just all of a sudden had the like, okay, this is the thing. And I was just sharing it with my friends on the podcast. And then as soon as I shared it with the world, just respond, respond, respond. There was so much for me to respond to. And I've had this conversation recently. I just interviewed Roxy Nafusi. Do you know Roxy Nafusi?
Mm-mm.
So she's really cool. So she's a manifesting teacher. She's English. She's got the best voice. Like I just love listening to her book. And I was also talking to Jeffrey Allen, who's like an energy healer, energy teacher. He's incredible, about this idea of you get to this point, whether it's manifesting, whether it's your business, And in the beginning, you're kind of really deliberately trying to create these things. But then I think you get to this point, and I do believe it's once you've done a certain amount of healing and you've raised your consciousness to a certain level, that all of a sudden it's like, this is just coming through me now. Like, I don't have these needs so much anymore, or like these desires that I have to create. It's more about, whoa, this is the thing that's moving me at the moment, or this is the thing that in response I'm like, yep, I've got energy for that. So I feel like the further you get along your path, I think we all get to that place where we need to surrender and just allow the universe to move us like a chess piece.
1,000%. And I think sometimes for me, I don't know if this ever happens for you, but sometimes I'm like, really? That? Like,
Yeah,
I have to
same,
move in
all the
that
time.
direction? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you, about a year ago, I had put down intuitive work for a long time, and I started
Oh
working
my God.
with,
And you are one of my all-time favorite intuitive teachers. You and
well,
Heather
I'm
Ivany are the
back,
gods.
baby.
Yay. Love it.
Well, it's so interesting because I had put it away and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm good. I need space. And I actually started working with my friend in Indonesia, who I had met when I went out there, and doing some really deep work around learning to ground into my own energy field and own my energy field and understand why certain things were happening with my energy when I was doing energy work, things like this. And I had an experience last year in 2020. Yeah, it was 2023. I started having dreams about a significant person in my life from that I hadn't talked to in 7 or 8 years. And I'm like, I'm not talking to this person. I don't talk to them. I'm over this. I'm over this relationship. Like, I'm good. And I kept having dreams about them. And I'm like, do I need to cut cords? And I'm going in my head, like really thinking about it. And it was the full moon, August of 2023. And I am driving, and I had had a dream about this person the night before. And a lot of the dreams were in this person's house where we used to hang out, which was also strange to me. A couple of dreams, his family was in it. And I'm driving, and I just remember looking up through the sunroof at the full moon. And I was like, why am I having dreams about this person? And in a flash, his mom came through and was like, I passed away. And I've been trying to get
Whoa.
through to you because you're the only
Whoa.
one who can connect with me. So immediately I pull over. She was only like 60 years old. I pull over and I pull out my phone, and I'm like, I'd Google her name and obituary, and like, lo and behold, she had passed. And it was one of those things that for me, I've had to continue to come into acceptance of, like, this is just a thing that is always going to be a part of my life, whether I like it or I don't like it or anything in between. And I've had to, I don't know if it's because I have my son is in the gate 25, which is all about acceptance and learning to love myself exactly as I am. So that's what I think a lot of my journey has been. But again, it's like, okay, if I can allow myself to move in the direction that life is taking me in, even if my mind wants to fight it, more so for me, it was like, oh, what does my family think, or what do these people? It was more so about judgment and fear of judgment than anything else. So this year has been, like, past 2 years has really been a reclamation of, like, it doesn't matter because the right people need what you have to offer to the world.
Yeah. Excuse me. I just had a big coughing fit in the background. I have got these new lozenges that I love, but they've got ginger in them, and they're a real punch in the face. So
Yeah,
literally, I'm like breathed in the
intense.
ginger, and it all just went crazy. Um, I feel like I just did as we record this, yesterday I ran a masterclass on being paid to be you. And I think that one of the things in there that I was really trying to get people to understand is this: people will pay you for you, not necessarily the skills or the knowledge or the things that you've built. It's like really getting to the core of who you are. So to do that, you actually have to discover and accept who you are and what you're good at and why you're on the planet. And I think that that is such a large part of the journey, this judgment piece that you were talking about. So often we are making choices from the mind because we don't want to be judged or rejected or ridiculed or whatever it is. And what, in my experience, I've discovered is that the more I release and surrender, the more authentic I am, the less of that ever comes my way.
1,000%. Yeah.
Mm.
And I
I
think
love
that
it.
those people
Mm.
will show up in your life to teach you and grow you. Like in 2020, like I was talking about, there were these certain experiences that happened and people that showed up for me to have to grow through. I chose to go in, right? Like some people choose to grow in a different kind of way. But you will be faced with whatever it is that you need to learn. And I think if we can see, makes me think of the Gene Key 21, which is like all about valor, which is like, can I show up to life's challenges knowing that, the shadow is dominion versus or domination versus submission, which is how a lot of the world operates and works. Like I'm either going to try to dominate people or I'm going to submit to what's happening in front of me. And I think the 21 is like, it's so connected to material world and material resources. It's like, I got to know that I'm here to show up from the heart and serve from the heart and charge forward in my life and move forward and know that I'm going to meet challenges along the way. Kind of like the hero's journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Mm-hmm. And like I have this real thing at the moment. I've always been this way. Not always, because I tried to avoid it like you wouldn't believe in the beginning, but that, I'm really consciously aware of resistance. Like, where is the resistance in my life? Because that's the door I need to open. Mm-hmm. That's where I need to go. And I think that so many people come to things like human design, but anything, and this was me in the beginning, because they're trying to find a way around this elephant that is in their path. And the thing that I've really championed is, no, you got to go straight up to that elephant and deal with that elephant. And what is on the other side is just often beyond your wildest dreams. It can be incredible once you actually deal with whatever that thing is.
Amen. That's the truth. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah.
So where are we going to go next? Can we please, in fact, I would love to go to dating. I really want to talk about the dating with human design.
Yeah, let's do it. Where do you want me? I'm like, where do you want me to start? I think with dating, I guess I could share, speaking of coming right up to something that you didn't want to do. I was having a lot of resistance to dating for a long time. Probably I had like a solid 4-year hiatus from dating personally. Again, like 2020, a lot of things blew up in my life. I turned 30 in 2019. So I think I was like going up onto the roof and life was like, we gotta like all the third line stuff you've been doing, we gotta maybe put all that stuff to rest. And so I went into like a deep mode of just healing and looking inward. And again, I feel like I'm emerging back out of a lot of that now. But I made this decision in the beginning of the year that I'm like, no one's showing up at my front door. And I'm a manifester. And the way that I am supposed to date is not going to necessarily look like a lot of what I've read in traditional books. And so I made this agreement with myself. I hired a coach. Her name's Stacey Perry. She's great. Accountability. I was like, I need accountability.
Like a relationship coach?
Dating coach.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I need someone that I can be accountable to. What was her name again? Stacey Perry.
Brilliant. Awesome.
2/4 manifesting generator. Shout out to Stacey. And she's just funny and awesome and warm. And she gave me some really great tools. Like she has this like high 5 relationship dating tool that's like how like, okay, do they want to commit? Do you enjoy, like the intimate touch, like all these kinds of things. So she gave me some really good frameworks and tools.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can roll with these tools, but I need to discover my own way of going out into the world and dating.
Yeah.
And so I made myself commit, and Amanda, who's been on the podcast, she and I talk all the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself 30 days of just strictly dating by design and not freaking thinking about it.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I'm a manifester. I need to follow my urges. So even if it's things that I quote hate, that I don't want to do, like getting on dating apps and this and this and this, I'm just going to strictly follow my urges. I'm going to follow my authority. And I'm also going to notice who I feel my signature theme with.
Yeah.
Because signature theme to me is like I'm moving in the right direction.
Which is peace, baby, for those listening. Yes. Peace, baby.
Yes. Peace all the way.
Peace is such a big thing. I'm actually getting a dove tattooed right here because I feel like it's one of my highest, funnily enough, family, my 37, and peace, manifesting generator. But I've got the 6. I've got peace all over the place.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because I think the reason why I decided to like use the signature theme was because so much of what I had been taught was to look for butterflies and rainbows and fireworks. And oftentimes I thought it was a firework, but it was like a grenade. So I was like, okay, that's not working. Let's use another something else.
It's so true, because now we know that's more about trauma bonding.
Exactly.
Like I was talking to Dr. Nicole LePere about all of this. Like we now know that is probably trauma bonding. And from a human design perspective, like that's your electromagnetics, people. That's your opposites coming together. So, there is things to be conscious of there.
I will also say not having an undefined sacral center. I used to also get very not a trap, but I would fall for my tripwire was like, there's so much sexual energy coming off of this person that I need to be very, very careful about if it's mine and it's something that I want, or I'm just experiencing intensity from somebody else.
Yeah.
So I just started following my urges, and my urge, I don't watch anything having to do with debates and things like that most of the time, but I had the urge to grab a bottle of wine, sit on my couch, and create a dating profile during the presidential debate, the first one. Wow. And I was like, this is weird, but we're going to go with it.
Yeah, this is what the experiment's all about, right?
This is what it is. And so I sat down, I had a glass of wine, and I created my dating profile. And I was like, don't think about what you're putting on the profile. Don't overthink what you're putting on the profile. Just simply put pictures up that feel good to you. Like pictures you feel good about, even if you don't like how a certain hair looked or a part on your body, or just put it up there.
Yeah.
And then as I was going through the app and swiping on people, I noticed how they felt. And I was using my emotional authority. So if I was this doesn't necessarily, I can oftentimes feel when something feels good or doesn't, as I think many of us can. So I'd sense the energy. And then I was like, I'm just going to use informing, because my strategy, I think I always used to think with dating as a manifester, my strategy was you have to initiate everything. So I have to get the ball rolling. But actually, I learned it's a lot more about informing for me than it is about trying to push energy forward. Just inform and see what happens. And so I ended up meeting somebody, and it was the 4th of July. We went out, and I went on this date with him. And it was so funny. It was from the dating app, from literally that night. Wow. Which is crazy, because that's not usually how it would go.
You just went on there. Oh my God, I love this so much. Yeah.
And I went on the date with him, and I was like, I feel so much peace. This is super weird. I feel so much peace. Oh my God.
I can feel my heart longing for that as you're talking about it.
Yeah. And my mom called me while I was out, and while we were on the date. And so I called her back, and I was like, Mom, it's so weird. I just feel peace. I feel peace. And then I was like, I guess I'm doing it right if I'm feeling peace. And so we ended up going out the next night. Now he's a 5-1 emotional generator.
Wow.
He has the 5539, I believe. We make the 1222 together. But I'm we have to be very careful, because emotionally, we were both yeah, this is great. We had, okay, slow down. Let's just sleep on this, or sleep on things and slow it down. But it was the first time that I started really just following my body. And he is not I think if I had on a piece of paper who I thought I was going to end up dating, he has all of the emotional and energetic characteristics of that person that I think match me very well. And obviously, we'll see what happens and how things progress. But I don't think I would have been I didn't think I was going to marry. I didn't think I was going to be with somebody from Florida. I didn't think I was going to end up here. I didn't think just these things that on paper I wasn't expecting to happen,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. So when you were on the dating app with an emotional authority, was it just you giving yourself a bit of time to feel into it? How were you listening to your emotional authority?
Okay. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, because I feel like I have my own perspective on this. I can oftentimes feel how something or someone feels. So sometimes when it's with emotional authority, and I think about going through my wave, sometimes I need to I might just be okay, this feels like a maybe, so let me match this person and see what happens. But other times I'm actually just using that sensation of feeling into someone to go like, does this feel right or not? Do you
Yeah.
feel like you can kind of feel into things immediately?
I feel like yes is the answer, but then it actually happened to me the day before last. I was sitting on the couch working on a slide deck, and my Instagram just buzzed, and I got an invitation to present in a community that I've wanted to present in for, I'm going to say, years. Like, this is someone that I've followed for years. And we've been slowly kind of building a relationship. It just kind of came out of the blue. And I was like, yep, I'm in. Let me know the dates. Da, 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 da. And I was talking to T about it. And I think the way my emotional authority works is that my emotional authority has been considering this community and this person for a very long time. So as soon as the green light came, then, yes, I knew in that moment. Um, and the feeling into people, and can you do me? Like, how am I going to be, like, from my human design, do me, tell me how I'm going to date.
Yeah, let's do
But
it.
I think one of the things that I'm really noticing is, and I can't even believe I'm going to share this, but I'm going to share it, is that I'm now really aware of the dysfunctional version of me
Yeah.
versus the functional version of
Yes.
me. So
Yeah.
I walked into the lawyer's office because obviously we're getting a divorce and all that sort of stuff. It's all fine, whatever. And I walk into this office, and there is this guy, this lawyer, and he's 6'4". He's got the most incredible blue eyes. He's freaking Irish, for God's sake. And I'm literally like, how I am standing here and constructing a sentence, I'm not sure. Like, I'm patting myself on the back for just acting normal, because he like blew me away. And I realized later, I'm like, wow, that's my dysfunction. That's my trauma bond. That's the guy that I've kind of always ended up with. Even though if I feel into the people I'm actually feel the best around, they're never showy. So I feel like that I'm very aware of that. But the whole dating app thing, I tried it for a few moments, and I was just like, I feel I kind of, there was part of me that couldn't really get a vibe for it. So help.
Yes.
Help.
Here's the thing. Again, I think to some degree, there's like following your strategy and authority to even decide what approach you're going to take to dating. Because like, I didn't want to go on the dating apps again. I was like, I'm done. I'm a line 4. I'm going to meet somebody through my network. But like, similar, like, I live on the beach right now in Pompano, which is right next to Fort Lauderdale. And like, I just followed my urge to find this place. And the way that I manifested it was like insane. But I didn't, I had been looking for months before of like, well, I got to come up with a plan, and I need to go on Zillow, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. And I think it's like, I think if we try, so a few things. Number one, I think from a dating perspective, like you said, working on yourself and understanding the difference between your attachment bonds and trauma versus, and your fantasies versus your like true, like getting into my body and using my human design strategy and authority. Like, that's where I think also like the deconditioning comes in. That's like huge, because for me, I would do the same thing. I'd be like, oh wow, this guy is, like you said, like a lawyer and this and all of these things. But I'm like, that's not necessarily right for me. And I don't feel a sense of peace around that person. The person that I want to be with should, or, is going to be right for me is that. And I will also say, like, I realized and I knew that when I met someone that I wanted to commit and be in a relationship with and explore that with, I'm like, I am going to have to come up against my own attachment trauma stuff. And for me, there's been a level of like the anxious attachment, and then also that same. Like pushing away and fear, like, I'm going to keep you at a distance. And so I knew, and I was like, how can I get resourced before I get into relationship to know that I'm probably going to come up against this stuff? And I need, because, and I'm sure like Nicole LaPera and other people have talked about this on the podcast, I'm not an expert in this by any means, like co-regulating with somebody who has like, for me, it was like a therapist who's like, well versed in attachment theory and can help me with those kinds of things, or somatic
Yeah.
experiencing or whatever. So I feel like I want to like just stress and drive home, because I used to just think like, just go follow your human design and it'll get all figured out. And I do think to some degree that does happen, but I do also think there's a level of, again, like we've been talking about, meeting yourself and knowing that through the
Yeah.
process, you're going to have to come up against that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, one of the things that has really, when I think about the relationship I want to get into, like one of the things that I know for sure is that I want it to be this process of dating, and I want to take it slow. And I think it's really interesting because, the part of me that needed to heal was the codependent. So every other
Mm-hmm.
relationship I've ever been in, it's like you get into it hard and fast, and then you're like almost attached at the hip. And this time I'm so aware that I do not want that. I want someone who feels safe and kind, and I want to date, and I want it to be something that grows over time, like two adults, functional adults would actually
Mm-hmm.
create,
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of my human design has really helped me understand like what that would look like. Obviously, having the 37 in my personality sun, I need someone who's really about family. I need someone who like that deep family connection is really important to them.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is one of the other things that I'm very aware of, and again, Dr. Nicole LePera talks about like you will not feel comfortable with the person that's actually good for you because unless you heal your trauma. So I'm actually aware that because the thing I look back at, the guys that I dated, and it wasn't that many, but the guys that I dated from being a teenager until I kind of met Just, and the ones that were actually brilliant, I thought were boring, and I'm like,
Same.
oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. So now I'm even conscious of, all right, so boring is probably going to show up. I'm a manifesting generator, in the core needs, variety is one of my high needs, like all of this sort of stuff. So I'm actually really consciously aware of, okay, cool. I know that I'm going to feel like this person is potentially boring. But is that boring, or is that grounded, or is that
Safe.
safe, or is that, all of these other things? So yeah, I think you're right. We really need to be conscious of who we've been in the past and how we learnt to be that person,
Mm-hmm.
and who we want to become in the future. And I do think that our human design can inform so much of that, and our
Mm-hmm.
strategy and authority can guide us. But we do also need to take full responsibility for the results. I
Yeah.
look back now and go, wow, all the red flags I just ignored,
Yeah.
like being really aware of that.
Yeah. I think it's the both and, right? And that's why I think it's so beautiful what you do with being a behavioral coach as well as bringing human design in, because I think it really does bring in that balance of needing to look at our conditioning in so many ways. And like, when I look at your design just as an example, I think we can look in the dating world. I've been hot this week on open centers and like where we're open, and being able to look at just your chart as an example and being like, okay, well, you've got that totally open G center.
Yeah.
And so really being able to see potential in people, but also like, do they see the potential in themselves, and are they taking the responsibility to get to that place? You
Funny you might
know?
mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think one of the things that I would say with like the undefined ajna and head center that I've had to also learn for myself is like, learning to move with uncertainty and knowing that, sometimes I think we feel very certain that we know, like we've been saying, like the type of person that we want to be with, and like I said, I'm fairly newly dating this person in my life. But there's a lot of aspects and things like, about the relationship that are different than I expected to be. But a lot of things that I needed to learn for myself. Like he's a 5-1. He loves like cooking and grounding in the earth, and he grows fruit trees and he does all this kinds of stuff, that is teaching me a lot of things that I needed to learn as well. So I think understanding, like, especially with the open head and ajna, is like being open, allowing yourself to let go of the certainty of what it needs to look like or how it's
Yeah.
going to happen, or having even like that distinct plan of how that person might come into your life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
you,
love that.
yeah.
I feel like I've worked a lot on all of that. In the beginning, I definitely had, the list and all the things. And now I'm just very much like, okay, I know there's probably 5 things that I really want in a human. And they're all like being things, not necessarily doing or having things. Um, and then the rest of the road is just about showing up, you know?
Yeah. This is where I think what you just said is so beautiful and perfect, because it's more about the being things. I think it comes more to knowing within your own self, and I think human design so beautifully points us towards this, is like, when you know yourself, you know your values. So
Yeah.
like you've even said, you're like, peace is a high value for me. Variety is a high value for me. Family is a high value for me. And so I actually taught a class that will be up evergreen on my website, but it's called Dating Your Way. And in
Mm,
Dating Your Way, there's a really big focus on your, it's like your values, but your values from your sense of being and what
yeah.
we know in our chart. Because I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of the times I've had to learn how to and really step into, like, these are my values. This is what I'm about. This is who I am. Like, I've spent so much time, like most of your listeners have spent so much time trying to understand who they are, that I think when we step into relationship with someone else, we can say to ourselves, okay, well, I am this, and I'm not going to sacrifice who I am. And,
Yeah.
gene keys are beautiful, and human design, we can look at, okay, what's the shadow?
Yeah.
The 25 for me maybe is like constriction and clinging, and like being, not ignoring my own feelings and all these kinds of things. Well, I know that's a pattern for me. And I also know the direction of my highest expression of myself is being love and acceptance of
Yeah.
myself, and also love and acceptance of someone else.
Mm,
So I can actually put that on my values list and be able to say, okay, when I'm dating, it's going to be of high value for me to be with someone who is also
mm,
loving and accepting and isn't
mm,
clingy, or whatever it may be. And I think that's truly how we can start to integrate these parts of design into how we date, more from a place of, I'm going to stand really deeply centered in who I am,
yeah.
versus, and that's where I think we start to see understanding your design, understanding yourself, coming into love and acceptance, living by your highest energy. We're going to have our
Yeah.
low days. That's okay. And then recognizing, like, okay, well, if I'm putting myself into alignment and I'm choosing to stand in myself every day, then my strategy and authority is my driver forward to see how someone might come into my life that might be different than I expect.
Yeah. I love that. You
Yeah.
know, as you're speaking, I think, one of the things for me in a partner is I want someone who's purpose driven. I feel like that line 5 in me that
Hmm.
wants to have this big impact. I need that in another human. The other thing and it's so funny because I feel like I said all these things before I ever consciously thought about my design. And then when I think about my design, my other big thing that I want in this next relationship is equality. Hello 37,
I was just going to say,
right? So I feel like we have to sometimes, or at least, play around with not trying to look to our design first, but look to our heart, and
yes.
say, like, okay, well, what do we really want? And maybe our design can then inform or help us language it better, or go, yeah, that's what I was trying to get to, instead of trying to fit, go the other way around and go, okay, well, I'm going to look at my design and see what I want in a relationship,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I feel like human design is just a way we can language what's going on inside of us. So we need to be informed by what's going on inside of us, not the knowledge, if you like.
Exactly. And like you said, I think being able to even look to the past of certain relationships that we've had and say, like, okay, this relationship felt like this, and this is how it ended, or like this person felt safe to me and not necessarily like I was having huge butterflies and things like that. Okay,
Mm.
well, what was that like? And I think, it's interesting being in relationship with um, different profiles, I think, as well. And I say that not just like in my current relationship, but also looking at, my friends and different things like that. I think I've had to also look at, especially learning about the 5-1 profile as an example,
Mm.
like, this person really wants to have an impact in the world. And so if I am this person's partner and they are moving towards that, can I champion them stepping into that space of impact and purpose?
Exactly.
And can I also honor that I'm a 4/6. I love people time. This person wants to be alone, sometimes completely by themselves, out in the dirt growing mangoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, can I also like love and accept those things in that person? And is this person across from me able to see me and want to be able to champion the things that are most important to me? Or are they going to get upset with me or angry with me that I want to go and be social during the week or have social time with other people? So I think also there's an aspect here of being able to choose someone who has enough emotional maturity to recognize, like, I think sometimes, at least for me back in the day, I used to try to choose someone who was what I wanted to be for myself. And I think if I can look at my own dating list and go like, is this like in my design and I'm not doing it for myself as well? Okay, maybe I need to embrace that for myself. Versus recognizing that I think a lot of relationship is stepping into, this is who I am, this is who you are, and are we going to make a commitment to support each other in living out the highest expression of who we are?
Yeah, it's fascinating what you just said. I'm trying to remember which number it is, but when we went to see Greg Braden earlier in the year, he talked about the 6 mirrors. The scene, the 6 mirrors. So we all talk about, in NLP we call it perception is projection, but basically that we project our internal world onto the the external world, right? And so what gets mirrored back is just us. So if someone's an asshole, let's say, and that triggers us, it's like, oh, well, where am I that asshole? And yes, there is a lot of this projection that what we see in others is in us, but there's 5 other mirrors. So yes, it's the most common, but it's not all of it. And I can't remember which one it is. It might be number 3, but it is actually that you call people in that have what you need, that have what you want. And I kind of think, and it's interesting because my mother and Justin were very similar in the fact that I called these people in to become a new version of myself, not to get what they had. Initially, that's what I thought I wanted. I was like, I want to be with you because of what because of who you are, but also because of who you tell me you're going to be and how you're going to take care of me. And what it actually ended up happening was I became that person that I wanted him to be when I was in my 20s. So we call in people that have what we want or in some way are going to, influence us in some way to become that or to grow that or to whatever. So, yeah, I think in the dating world, that is one of the things that we want to be super conscious of. Like, is it just something we're looking for ourselves, or is it actually my heart speaks to this heart?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And there was something I was going to say that you said, but I can't remember what it is. It slipped out of my brain. It's gone.
Yeah. Welcome to Undefined Head and Ajna, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know it's here. It's gone.
Yeah. So as a 3/5 emotional manifesting generator who does not want to go onto dating apps but is open, what would your advice be?
That's such a great question. I'm looking at your chart more so because I'm kind of, I have it in the background and I'm like, what wants to pop out at me? So first off, okay. So when I taught dating your way, I think one of the things that, first off, looking at profile, I think is extremely important in terms of sort of crafting your own approach to dating. You are a 3/5. So letting yourself get out there. I think sometimes when I look at a profile, I look at like, what's going to be the place, space, experience that's going to allow kind of the highest essence of myself to come out. So as a third line, I think being able to do something active or dynamic or out in the world. I actually went on a date with a guy many years ago. When I lived in Colorado, it was snowing and he was like, let's go rollerblading. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Fell, got the biggest bruise of my entire life. But I'm like, he was probably a third line if I had to guess, right? Yeah. And he always wanted to go do adventure dates. And so I think for yourself, like being able to look at, okay, I'm a third line. I want to do something active. Maybe I want to get out there. I want to connect with somebody. That could be a great way for you to connect with somebody as well as being a third line that might have some kind of shared value with you. And same thing with, I think, the fifth line, like impact. Where are places that you might meet people who want to have an impact in the world?
Oof,
You know?
well, I'm presenting at a like a marketing event over the next 2 days. So
Amazing.
Places like that.
There you go. That is very likely where you will meet somebody like that. Yeah.
And
And
I think I just want to say as well, because I think that that's my problem with the dating apps, is that there is no experience. Like, we're not having an experience of each other. We're having like this secondhand or third-hand experience of each other. So I can't get a grasp, it's like that whole, I don't even know what question to ask until I've had an experience of something. And once I have an experience, I have 50 questions.
Yes. Here's what I will say, a little hot tip on dating apps that I've kind of noticed is going in and maybe even being able to see, okay, look at the person's pictures, because a lot of the times people don't know how to write about themselves and they're given I think we need a whole updated approach to dating apps in general. But what I would say, I think, is looking at like where that person might have adventures or experiences. Are they climbing Mount Everest? Are they doing something like that you can engage and ask questions? Because I think once you can feel potentially somebody's energy and how it comes through, even in a message on an app, it's going to give you a lot of information and things to respond to, or a lack of things to respond to. Right.
That's been my experience so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like boring conversation. Like, even though they did interesting things, there was one guy who I thought was really interesting, and he just gave me like 2-word answers and stuff. I'm like, so connection's also one of my, like, if I can sit in a room and talk to you for hours about the deepest, darkest things inside of you and we're going to be friends forever.
Exactly.
But, 3 words, like, that's not my thing.
Yeah. I also think being able to put those things on the app as well as you're answering questions about yourself. There's a woman, Logan Ury. She has a book called like How to Not Die Alone or something like that. But she works at Hinge, and she does all the dating science behind it. She's really interesting. And she talks about like your dating profile should weed most people out. You shouldn't be matching with absolutely everyone. And so I think there's also ways, I think if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you can use those questions as things for yourself to respond to share your highest values, things like that as well. I will also say one of the fan favorites in Dating Your Way that we talked about was your attractor sphere in your Venus sequence.
Do mine.
Yeah, what is yours?
53, I think line 5. Let me look it up. Oh, you've got my chart there.
Yep. Hang on. Okay. Yeah. So what I have found, this is just like my own anecdotal evidence. I don't know that I can say this for everybody. Your attractor sphere is, I think, a sphere to work on for yourself. So that you can attract in more of the right type of person.
Jesus. Well, I know the 53, I've got it sorted,
Immaturity.
But it's the line 5. I think I'm a little bit like, that's the bit that I need to work on.
Yeah. I would say with the line 5, at least the way that I see it, there can be a lot of, first off, I think it's interesting because in the shadow, I could see there being a level of like attracting in immature partners, right? Because your attractor sphere is either going to be you embrace, like you're embodying that, or you're attracting that kind of person in.
Yeah.
The 53, immaturity. And then I think also the line 5 can sometimes have this fear of never being able to fully please a partner, never being able to fully please somebody, never being able to fully like you want to show up, you want to have impact. Sometimes there can be power struggles that come along with that 5. So I think even what you said, like wanting to have an impact and being able to show up in that place, but not, the shadow of the 5 is going to try to take on too much responsibility for other people. So attracting
an
immature partner who doesn't take responsibility for themselves and maybe having a fear that you're never going to measure up or whatever.
Oh my God, Jess. Fuck. It's a no. Okay, good. So that's what I don't want. Like that, like my whole body is like, okay, we really, okay. Lesson learned, got it, nailed it,
Letting it
rightio,
go.
move on. Yeah.
Yes. And so I would say with this too, like I think actually being able to focus on this, oh my gosh, sorry, something just hit me that I'm like, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. I'm just okay. Anyways, I'll go into it in a second. But somebody who values expansion,
yes,
takes responsibility for themselves. Like this, I think is a place where we can actually look at what we're attracting in. Whereas I think all the other stuff is like, this is who I am and this is what's important to me. And I think that 53 is like, okay, yeah, expansion, somebody who wants to expand, somebody who's growing. And that can give you great places again to go and meet people.
Yeah. And I'd love this because one of the things that I want in one of the 5 things, like there's kindness, humor, but they've got to be purpose driven. Like that's the thing. Like they have to be like, I want to make the most of my life. I want to expand. I want to grow. I want to, do that with me and me do that with you. So I'm like, bang on.
I also think that's just you and the people you want to call into your life in general.
100%. I'd say that's all my friends. All my friends are like, get the fuck out of my way, in the most loving way. Let's make it, let's make this life count.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And again, that's where I think it's like you would probably want your partner to fit in with your friends, right? And the people that you value the most in your life.
And it's so interesting when I did my my Hinge profile the first time, it just felt like I showed my friends and they're all like, oh yeah, that's brilliant, that's brilliant, that's brilliant. And I got zilch. And I'm thinking it's because I'm too much, because I'm talking about purpose and I'm talking about, adventure, and I'm talking about all these things. Like one of the goals I had on there is I want to spend a minimum of 3 months following the Formula One Grand Prix with my 2 sons. Cool. I mean, what man doesn't want that, right?
Yeah.
Like this is one of my goals, but I think I was so aware that I am, a 3'5" MG. Like this, like I want to play a big game. I want to play a big game, and I want to be with someone who's not afraid to play a big game.
And this is where, right, we sort of have to start to look at like, oh, I automatically assumed in my story that I'm too big, I'm too too much, I'm too this, that, and the other thing, right? Where it's like, you only need one person. You don't need 5,000 people when you're matching on an app. You need one person. And so I think that's where, again, like it's always going to dating is going to bring us up against ourselves in many ways. But I think if we can even just look to attractor sphere for ourselves, for everyone, because I'm actually laughing. And what I realized is I've got the 56.3, and the 56 is the storyteller and it's the performer. And guess what? My partner is classically trained in acting.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is hilarious and very playful. And so I'm cracking up because I used to attract the promiscuous one. That's the shadow of the line 3. Promiscuous, distraction, want to hide themselves, don't want other people to see them, that kind of stuff. And so I think for me, I had to work on, why am I attracted to that? And for me, it was a lot of like, I had a lot of shame. There was like a lot of shame in terms of like sexual connection and stuff like that. So as I started to work on that, I'm like, okay, I'm also not going to distract myself, because I'd go on dates and be like, tell me all about you. Don't look at me. Don't listen to me. I'm just going to smile and nod my head. And I want to hear all about you, so I don't have to talk about myself. Which is funny because I love to talk. But that's where I think we can actually start to dial in the chart to see these. That's why I love the gene keys so much, because I think we can start to dial in where things might be off in our dating world.
Yeah, I love that, because I definitely have, worked with my attractor sphere before, because I could see where, my inner child, like my immaturity would just show up. And I've even in some areas it was something that I healed many years ago, but in other areas there's part of that immaturity piece where I've had to put very specific boundaries in, even going through divorce, because like the immaturity would just show up and I'm like, dude, what am I doing? So it's something that I've been really conscious of, that immaturity in me. And I think that, and also being conscious of seeing it it out there, because I think also being that line 3, there's a fine line between someone being fun and adventurous and being immature.
Yes.
And that's something that I actually learnt when I was really young. Like, I'm fun and adventurous and I'm up for adventure, but I'm also really, like, not sensible, but I'm not immature about that stuff. Like, I make really good decisions and, healthy risks and that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
whoa, oh my God, look at the time.
I know. I was going to say also too, I think, I start to look at a lot of the Venus sequence because I think there's a
Yeah.
ton in there about relationship and what we need and also our patterns in relationships. But I think too, like you have your SQ as the 5.6, which is double patience,
I
double
know, right?
patience.
Double patience.
And so having a partner that is patient,
Yeah.
right? But that also is like looking at am I being patient with myself? But again, I think we can start to look at these characteristics as more of like soft qualities of somebody versus the hard quality of like, well, they make this much money and they do this and they're this and this. It's like, do I feel peace and satisfaction around them?
Yeah.
And do they bring a sense of maturity and a desire to expand and be impactful and
Yeah.
all those kinds of things? And do they embrace patience?
Yeah.
Can they see the bigger picture? Do they bring wisdom and things like that? Because I know that I have that within me. So I think there's a lot of places that we can look. If I was going to say, just to like round this out, because I know we need to go, but from if I wanted to take an approach to dating, for me, I started using my profile. I love coffee shops. I was like, I'm going to meet people at coffee shops because I feel comfortable at coffee shops. I'm going to take them to my neighborhood coffee shop, and that's where I'm going to meet up. Then I obviously would probably need to do multiple different coffee shops so I don't end up at the same one with maybe somebody I went on a date with before. But I think using your profile to sort of look at the places where you might feel most comfortable and the most authentic aspects of yourself might come out is a really great thing to do. Look at that attractor sphere to start to see maybe what you're attracting, why you might be attracting it, and where maybe you need to tweak and hone some of those things inside of yourself. And then I think ultimately, I know that I want to be with a partner that feels like home to me. There's a
Same.
level of that.
Yep.
And I think
And the biggest adventure you've ever been on, like in the most resourceful way.
Exactly. And I think your SQ as well is also something that you might be able to look at to be like, this is an important quality to me? Because like mine's the 9.4 and this person's like very driven and the 4 is very, I didn't plan these things, but I think as I started to recognize that they were important to me and prioritize them in my life, I could actually be like, oh, I want to be with somebody who holds that similar type of value to me.
Yeah, far out. I love that. And that except for school boyfriends, every single guy I've ever dated, I've met at work. And I feel like that line 5 is really that big thing. Okay, so you are a super intuitive person.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, just out of my own curiosity, because a lot of my very intuitive friends have given me some very specific, like, not too specific, but they're like, I know that you're not going to meet him this way and you are going to meet him this way. Okay. Intuitively, does anything come up for you?
Okay, wait, I geeked out a while ago, so I will tune into it, number one. But the second thing oh my gosh, balloons.
Balloons.
You're going to meet at a party.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it in the background. There is a woman who has I got to see, sorry, your son, what's your son? Your son is Pisces?
Yep.
Hold on. Okay, I'm going to have to find this and figure it out because I can't remember exactly what it is now, but it's like something like whatever sign. So what is the ruler of Pisces? What planet rules Pisces? Is it Neptune?
Neptune, yeah.
So wherever your Neptune, I think, is in your chart, I think she's like Astro Kit or something on YouTube. Wherever your Neptune is in your chart, whatever house it's in is the way that you'll meet your partner, something like that. It's
Oh my
very
God.
weirdly specific, but it's
I
correct.
wish I could be bothered trying to find that, like trying to work that out.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'm going to find it afterwards and I'll message you because I literally tested it out with like 10 people and it was correct with every last one.
Wow.
So
oh my God, please do.
I'll look and let you know. We'll find her. Where do I think that you're going to end up meeting somebody?
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Sorry, now I'm just like tuning in because I see somebody just like directly walking into your life. I don't know why. I see them like literally physically walking up to you. I don't know if it's going to be at an event, but there might be travel that's actually involved with it. Whether you're traveling somewhere, you're meeting at an event, but I think that there's going to be, I literally see this person beelining their way up to you. And I don't know why, but the way that they're presenting in my mind, we'll have to see if this ends up being correct, is they look like they have like longer hair. Almost like a lion, like a Leo, like a lion. So I don't know if it'll be like a Leo or if this person will actually have longer hair or something associated with their hair, but they feel very like masculine.
Great.
Soft.
Great.
Heart of a lion. And I'm seeing there being this person walking up to you, and maybe there being a level of travel involved with it or an event or something that is but I don't think you're going to expect it. It almost feels to me like you get kind of caught off guard because you're doing something else and they just come up to you. So
I've got head to toe goosebumps. Head to toe goosebumps.
Now I have to look. I'm like, I'll figure this out with your chart afterwards and I'll text you.
Can you? That would be amazing. Yeah. And it's really interesting that you say that because in so many ways, that's how I've met people in the past, like in a situation like that. And that's really similar to what all my other friends have said. They're all like, you are not going to meet anyone on a dating app, and it's just going to he's just going to literally appear in front of you.
If I'm reading this correctly, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to have to look. I don't want to like lead people astray, but this woman, Astro Kit, mine was like, you're going to meet somebody who's like somewhere like in your radius in your neighborhood and likely on a dating app. And I was like, I'm a line 4. I'm not going to meet anybody on a dating app. And then I'm like, oh my God.
But I feel like the dating app is like the ultimate network, right? Like, isn't that
it literally, yeah, it is. Well, funny enough too, there's connections through my network to this person. And
of course there is. You lot are so amazing. Like I think about you and Amanda, like stop it. You both epitomized network, Yeah. Like I think about my friend network, my business, my team. It wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for you.
I know. Isn't that so crazy?
Yeah. It was so meant to be. It was so meant to be. Like,
yeah.
I'm never letting you go, Jess Bubbico. Like you're a little bit magic. You have contributed, not only you as an individual, but your manifest energy has contributed so much to my life, and I'm very grateful for you.
I am very grateful for you in the exact same way. So we'll have to have some. I'll tap in after this. I'll send you some messages and see what comes through.
Please do. And can you? Because you're a manifestor, I can just put you here on the spot. Yeah. You are an emotional authority, but would you come and teach dating by design in HDX for us? Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Awesome. Play HDX, friends. Did you hear that? It's going to be fun. I am absolutely looking forward to it.
I've also got a love languages by design class. So we can do, I guess I'm a vessel of love. So we can talk about relationships and dating and all the things.
Oh my God, so good. So good. I feel like we need to revisit this whole episode and do it all over again. Yeah. We will put all the links for all the things that Jess offers in the show notes to make sure that you can, if you're like me, you have to get your hands on them right now. We'll make sure all of that is taken care of. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience, my dear friend?
I don't think so. I am just grateful to be here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And you know what? I feel like there's probably more to talk about on being a manifestor in business. So we should definitely have you back on that.
Perfect.
Sometime soon. Thank you, everyone, also for being here. I trust you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone, for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, Could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.